Thank you and good morning. What I'm going to do is speaking from 25 years of the ESPN sports poll, plus things that we've learned from history and other trends, because this is a pivotal and a key time. And in fact, I'm sharing some things with you this morning we haven't shared with anybody else yet. So I'll be kind of anxious to see what your take is on it. You can please email me if you have questions or comments after the fact. I'm going to try to be around all day. Lydia here in the corner is part of our team as well. We have a few handouts on the sports poll itself, but again, you could learn a lot more by going to lukearontrends.com. We are in the age of the American sports in the internet age. It is now the time of the internet. The changes have taken place and have changed us irreparably. I really do choose to use that word, even though continuous change will happen going forward. And it often, our take is, as we talk to our clients and people in the industry and students, is there are two questions that are at the back of everything. Well then, how do we make money in this new deal? And I'm not talking about how do we capitalize on it. I'm saying, how do we continue? How do we maintain? How do we hang in there in light of all of these changes that are in the process of changing us? What does this mean for sports, this epic change? And as I've heard and I've talked with people about this, the realization is that it's not a simple proposition. So for about 28 minutes here, I'm going to go through what the context of it is. And it's going to be a little bracing and jarring, because before I talk about sports, I'm going to talk about the automobile. Because that's probably, in 100 years, the only other epic change that's really close to what we're talking about, what's going on with the internet. From there, I'm going to talk from our data to say, this thing is really hitting us. We do need to be concerned about what's going to happen in sports. And in particular, we're going to talk about how the internet is changing youth in ways that an old guy like me certainly can't appreciate. Some of you I can see are in a period where you get it, but you weren't born with it, and it's going to make a difference. Then all of that comes back to, all right, what business decisions do we make, knowing what we know about the epic change of the internet? And then I'm going to appeal to you for 2% of everything you've got to answer that question, what do we do about sports? But let's talk about the automobile first. An epic change is not like television. Television was a big deal, but it only really affected interactively one part of life. It was an extension of how we got information. An epic change changes everything about life. And the automobile definitely did it. This is what a New York street looked like in 1900. And here's the thing. You've got horses and buggies going down the way. These horses are living things that they had relationships with. We have relationships with our cars, but not like what they had with horses. And it was a vested interest that they certainly didn't want to give up. And when the car came along, it totally decimated the horse, right? It didn't happen overnight. The car was invented in the late 1700s. It took over 100 years before Henry Ford figured out, how do we produce these in a way that it can go to the masses? And when it went to the masses, that's when it did away with the horse. It didn't kill the horse. It just completely eliminated it as a delivery system. And we're in that period right now where the internet is starting to eat live all the other competitive delivery systems. And so our temptation is to focus all our energy on how we stay alive in the internet, if not thrive. And the temptation is to bow to the God of the internet the same way we bowed to the God of the automobile, because that's the only way we can stay alive. Guess what? The horse was not going to win. Now, the thing is, and that may sound like I'm doing doom and gloom. No. In fact, I want to use history to show you how epic change also opens the door to remind us we're human beings first and foremost. At the very same time all of this was happening, the National Park Service started. 1908 is when cars started rolling off the line, and within 10 years, there was a groundswell to protect land in America. Why? Because now horses could take you 3 to 5 miles away from your house in a day. Now cars could take you anywhere, and they were. And they were concerned that they were going to destroy those lands. So the Park Service was created. But it wasn't just the Park Service. The car replaced the horse as a delivery system. But it also gave rise to the seeds of transportation that is human at heart. Parks were developed, national parks. We now have over 500,000 parks in America, paths and trails, and continually more and more. Is there anyone in this room who has had a driving experience in the last 6 months where there wasn't a bicycle path? You've never seen a bicycle path on a street. Is there anyone who's not? No. In fact, here we are 100 years later, and it's becoming more prominent. The human expression of transportation. But understand this. It is not a delivery system. The car is the delivery system. Paths, parks, and trails are humans being humans, and that's the distinction I want to draw today, and powerfully. Epic change is almost always a delivery system. It is not the destination. Running water changed a lot of things. It wasn't epic, it changed a lot, but what did it do? It delivered water from the outside to the inside. Indoor plumbing, I won't explain to you, but same thing, right? Electricity, the same thing. If you touch electricity, you're done. That's not the destination. It delivers power to the things that you want to do. Let me illustrate by 3. So you have the epic change that's at the top. And when it comes in, there's going to be a complete destruction of the delivery system that preceded it, right? So in the case of the car, which is the top one here, the horse was removed as the delivery system. But at the same time, a seed of greater engagement, greater involvement for the human condition is brought up, and that's what we have with parks, paths, and trails. Again, I say TV and cable was big, but it not nearly as broad in its application as cars or the internet. And what it did is it didn't totally decimate attending, listening, and reading, but it certainly brought it to a big decline. That's another reason why it isn't epic. And what rises in the midst of that? The NFL. Why? Because the NFL created television? No. Because the NFL changed what it was doing so it would fit television? No. The NFL rose because it fit the delivery system, right? So you move now to the internet, and what is at risk is traditional media. And maybe not in the next 5 years, maybe not in the next 10 years. We don't have a clue what all is going to be possible through the internet. This idea of a smartphone, the word phone will be gone before long. It has no relevance whatsoever. But what I'm here to tell you is that the opportunity is for the reemergence of the growth and the love of traditional sports in the same way that parks rose from the automobile. It won't happen unless we consciously and intentionally do it. You know what the NFL to this whole thing is esports. Esports fits. You know why it fits? You know, and here's a challenge with our industry, grasping, trying to make things work. Well, we'll just redefine sports to include esports. All right, and esports work because people around the globe are already playing the games that are being broadcast, right? It fits. Esports didn't create the internet. Esport fits what's going on in the internet because it was already there, and it is a perfect fit. But how soon till cricket works in the United States? It doesn't fit. Traditional sports do not fit the internet. But that's why there's this opportunity to step back and say, let's get real and do powerful things. Let us use this technology, but let's do it in a way that's going to allow for the human element of it to work. Just in case you still have this notion that we aren't in some serious trouble. We've seen it for 15 years. I most palpably, and for the first time 2 years ago at the Sports Marketing Conference in November, really laid out the numbers for why we are in decline in ways that if we don't do something, it is going to decimate traditional American sports. And here they are. We've seen it coming for 15 years. From 1995, that red line is the percentage of millennials who are avid sports fans, right? And an important part here, these bottom two bars are the older folks. And here's another reason why sports are doing okay, right? Because the fact is, old guys like me are more engaged in sports than my parents were at this age. And we have more money. So there is money to feed the traditional sports for another 5 to 10 years. And then you're going to, I see this here? That came when a sports executive, plural, because more than one do, oh, rich, when they turn 35, they'll come back when they're parents. You can't come back if you weren't there in the first place. That's like saying to me, oh, Rich, when you turn 70, you'll start knitting. No, I didn't knit when I'm young. Why would I knit now? It is a cultural human thing that has to be seeded, and if it isn't, it's not going to happen. Now, some of you are out there saying, well, yeah, but Rich, with millennials, that's a generation, and they were younger then, and that's what you're seeing. Okay, so let's look at it by age just, right? Top line are 12 to 17-year-olds from 1994, through 2017. Serious declines. And I'll tell you that the younger groups are even starting at a smaller level. You can see once again the yellow shaded are my 18 to 34-year-olds, and they are, my 35 to 54-year-olds, which are sustaining sport. Another side note, which is just kind of fun. This is sponsored by Title None. We have never dedicated one dime to build a sports fan. Never. The only palpable, serious, substantial investment in sports is Title IX, and look at the impact. On the right is women in sports. At worst, it's flat, right? And we're seeing some emergence. Without that investment, it would have been like that, right? If we don't invest, it won't be there. Now, if you're happy with a world that's nothing but esports, that's fine. But let's talk about the nature of that epic internet change. Going back to 1995, one of the questions we ask on Sports Poll is, what's your first source for sports information? And back then, 2/3, 67% said the newspaper. Television took over in about 2000, and literally SportsCenter was at the heart of that for about 8 years. It's an open-ended question. We get literally 1,000 things mentioned. But these are the things that, when aggregated, come up. And it's at 2010, another reason why I say we're at that epic turn, now the internet's taken over. But aren't you asking yourself, I know I was originally, 2010, shouldn't that have happened much earlier? Well, let's overlay what was going on at the same time, and I hope you can see this. So all this, by the way, that squiggly line that's going like that is what the economy did. I'm going to start there. For 20 of the 25 years, as the economy went, so went sports. In the last 5 years, the economy has been going up. Last 10 years, the economy has been going up. People's ability to spend has been going up, and sports interest has gone down. That's what tells us this is epic in its implications for sports as we know it. Well, look at the developments. Before 1999, we didn't really have Google yet, right? So it still had to be the newspaper. Well, now Google's there, so now we're getting the information. But Facebook, YouTube didn't show up until about 2004, 2005. It still didn't quite happen. And here's where the lights came on to us. It wasn't the stuff that's on the internet that made the big change. It was the delivery system. The smartphone is developed in 2007. It is in wide use by 2010. And what that meant is the internet left the desk. Anytime, anywhere. We were collecting information about how much time you spend on the internet doing things. Worthless data from 2010 on. You know why? That's like asking a person, how much time do you spend checking out what time it is? I always know what time it is. When I used to have a watch, right? 24 hours a day you had the time, right? You are online all the time now. In the way you are as a human being, you're always online because you know you can always get access to it. If you have any doubt about that, leave your smartphone at home for a day and see how that works for you, right? At the same time, we're seeing incredible growth in the gross amount of time people are spending online. So 18, 34-year-olds, and this is just in 5 years, now nearly 40% say, and they spend most of their free time online. Most of their free time online. Now, how about you? Somebody comes up and asks you, how much time of your free time do you spend online? None, a little bit, whatever, most of the day. Oh, I spend most of the day online. Now, this is what we call social desirability challenge. People aren't going to readily, they're not proud of that. These numbers are low, is my point. But here's the thing. This is time that used to be spent on sports. I'm going to come back to that. We ask a ton of questions about what they do online and about what they do with sports. And then when we're done, we say, okay, so all these things considered, is your time online adding to or taking away from your time on sports? I want you to look at the 12 to 17-year-olds. 47% say taking away. See, what happens is this thing is compelling in and of itself. It's an epic change. It's not just a delivery system. The difference between this and television that makes it epic and television not is it's interactive. I can do something with this, right? So now there are other things that are available that are equally competitive for me, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to say that it's an issue. And in case you doubt what I'm about to say about how soon this is going to be a fait accompli, 73% of 10-year-olds today have their own smartphone. Let me say more about that. Because not only are they online more, not only is it less likely to lead to more sports, not only do they have their own smartphone at age 10, by the way, 80% of 5+ have either their own smartphone or a dedicated pad. So it's getting younger. The nature of change itself is changing in a way that's powerful. These same 10-year-olds will turn 18 in 2026. And we're projecting, and have been working on this for a while, that's roughly the point at which a person turning into an adult, and everybody turning into an adult after that, will not know life without the smartphone. That will be a completely different way of thinking than anything we know today. You can't quite see this image maybe. It's drinking water to them. You know what that means? For a typical 8-year-old today, there's nothing exciting about the smartphone or the internet any more than there's something exciting about their socks. It's part of their lives. They know it. More. If you could see this horse, it's 1776, and there you are in your horse and carriage, and all of a sudden, a car goes flying by at 70 miles an hour. You would think, oh my God, there are aliens. A spaceship landed. This can't be. It's not possible. Well, that's nothing. To these kids today, we're traveling at 700 miles an hour. If you're older than 10, you're still thinking of life in a way that you have a stable big thing that happens, we have it for decades, and another stable thing happens. That's gone. Not going to be there anymore. We are in an age of fluidity where things are changing so rapidly. Let me illustrate. This is what's your favorite social media, and it's for teenagers. And this is from fall 2012 to spring 2013. Facebook. 1 year later, it's Twitter. 6 months later, it's Instagram for a year. And another fall later, it's Snapchat. It's changing. Our dominant modes of using this thing change in less than 18 months. So how's that going to affect your 5-year plans? Why do we even talk about millennials, born from 1980 before we had the internet to 2000 before we had the smartphone? How can you talk about that as one group when things are changing every 18 months? But it's not that they're changing every 18 months. They're changing constantly. constantly. And these kids are looking at it in such a way that says, I don't care. I don't care what the delivery system is. I don't care how much you change it up. Sure, I'll change. I'll go from this to that. They're smarter than us. These 18-year-olds are focusing on the destination. They're focusing on what they want to do, not on your delivery system. Let me give you an illustration that to me is unbelievable, actually. How many of you use an Apple phone? Show of hands. How many of you use an Android phone? Show of hands. How many of you have never had your phone updated? Show of hands. Well, it happens all the time, right? How many times does it happen? You don't know, but you remember the first time? First time they wanted to update my first phone, I'm going, oh my God, I don't know if we can do this because the whole thing might break, right? That is an epic change. Do you realize if you unfolded what took place in any one of those updates 20 years ago, it would have been amazing what they did. And now we don't even know. And we don't care. And it is so powerful. This is the truth. Lydia will tell you. This picture here is from the Uber on the way here because frickin' Microsoft chose to update my computer while we were driving here. I survived. Was able to put it on here. We don't care about the delivery systems anymore. We know they're going to change. What matters is, where are the parks? Where are the paths? Where are the trails? So how does business deal with that? There's a progression to this inescapable epic change. And a way of looking at it is, we had 60 years of true stability where a 5-year plan was fine. Nothing but growth, no real changes from 1950 to 2010. And every time we sat down to do the 5-year plan, the thought was, that's cool, everything's fine. Let's see what we can do. Now, I hope you can see this here. Did you know 63% of all CEOs and people who run business are over the age of 45? They live in this world where everything's fine. Don't have to change a thing. Well, these people grew up. We had this thing called TV Guide. It was like a book that was this thick, and you couldn't wait to get it because it told you what you could watch on TV, when. Everything was controlled by the media. This was the listing of when the movie was on at the movie theater, and that's all it was. This was the listing of when the games were. This is the only form of interactive engagement in entertainment that is still controlled by the producers and has to be. Oh my God, is that a problem? Esports doesn't have that problem. So something's got to happen here if we're going to sustain that level of sports. We had stability till 2010 with the adoption of the smartphone until about 2015. We have transition to get it right. And by 2026, you got problems. Why? I'll show you in a minute. But again, there are billions of competing options. 73% have a smartphone, don't know life without it. All adults will be in smart life, not just smartphones, in 9 years. Faster than every 2 years, and they're in control. So there's two paths. The first one is everything's fine. Now let me encourage you. You don't have to worry. If you don't change what you're doing, you'll be just fine. They all thought they'd be fine, didn't they? The second one is not, and our encouragement is this. I'm not asking you to redirect everything you do, because that's not what happened with Parks and Recs. Obviously, the money invested in the automobile was massive compared to that. 5% of everything. Of your staff, of your time, of your heart, of your thinking, of your money. And I'm not talking about your marketing dollars. I'm talking about every dollar. 5% dedicated to knowing what's at the heart of those who love what you do most. You get that 5%, correct? It's okay if your system blows up on Uber. You don't have that. You don't have anything. Look at Amazon. They started out as books, and none of us thought they'd succeed. Then, excuse me, I have a thing in my throat. Duh. They did Kindle. Then they did everything, right? And now they buy Whole Foods. That's flexibility. Walmart, they started with everything. If anybody could be complacent, it was Walmart. They go to groceries, and now they're competing with Amazon with home delivery. You've got to be courageous and agile if you're going to succeed. And which path are we on now? What if the new model is, the old model, sports is the cultural heart of American free time, and the new model is online dominates our free time, and that is where we're headed. 2% solution to get to the heart of sports, not even 5%. Okay, yeah, but the temptation is to say, hyper-focus on making sports fit into the delivery system. Redefine and extend the definition of sports to include esports, then you're okay. You can include that $130 billion. The horse as a delivery system was destroyed. Paths and trails and roads and parks weren't. Try to make American traditional sports fit the internet, it won't work. It won't work. What day is it? What is today? Wednesday? Oh, 2 days from now, I'm going to run out of toothpaste. No, really, yeah, I'm going to run out of toothpaste. Last time I got it at a grocery store. Maybe this time I'll get it at a drugstore. You want to come with me? That's insane, right? Why? Buying toothpaste is a transaction, and Colgate understands that. You have a thing you need, you go and you get it, and here's how it works. I'm doing something I want to do with people here, and I'm going to do something there. The drugstore's on the way. I pick up the toothpaste, and that's it. Nothing more to it. It is not the destination. A transaction is not the destination. And yet, when we ask sports executives, what do you sell? Here's what they tell us. Tickets, licensed products, concessions, ratings, sponsorship, and access. All transactions, all destinations, not. They're all things you need. It's not the 2% or 5% that's at the heart. What's at the heart is a relationship. And I want to ask you, why are you even going to go to the games and worship somebody who's playing instead of playing yourself? Why are you going to buy the shirt if you don't care? There was a woman in Chicago, 54 years old, tell us a story of why she loves baseball. She says her dad, in 1959, when the Sox lost to the Dodgers, in 1960 said, "This is our year, and I know it." She says, and every year from that year till he died, this was the year. December 2004, he died. The White Sox won in 2005. Doesn't it kind of tug at you a little bit? Then get this. The story goes on. To commemorate the win, my brothers and I decided to take a flag out to his grave, only to find 1,000 other flags already there. You don't do that with hot dogs and advertising. You do that with heart and understanding why they love it so much that they want to be a part of it. We've collected over 100,000 stories about why people love sports, about the 2%. And Lydia's really good at this. And she discovered, said, "Rich, we're starting to see tattoos show up all over the place." And they tell these heartwarming stories that always ended with, "Then I got the tattoo." You know what this means? This means I'm going to be identified with this for the rest of my life. What are you doing that's generating that? What is the internet doing this? How many tattoos have you seen said internet? It ain't going to happen. It doesn't work that way. Great news, folks. Great news. We ask, would you like to spend more or less time online? We're not quite there yet because the 12 to 17-year-olds still, almost half of them stay there, say they got more to go until they're full. But then when we ask, have you ever, in the last week, did you look to intentionally to get away from time on the internet? And these numbers are up. The group saying the most, 12 to 17-year-olds, 60% of them weekly trying to get offline. Why? It's just sucks to them. They want parks. They want recreation. They want destinations that are real. Be that destination. Beat inescapable change by building on what people crave and never changes, the human condition. You know, you'll never be a teenager before you're a baby, though sometimes it seems like it, right? You're never going to feed or clothe your parents. So you could count on the years from 25 to 50 being the highest consumption times, no matter what the internet does. The emotions we have as human beings will never change. The sources of them will, and it'll never be a delivery system that causes those feelings. It'll only be a destination. And finally, none of us are going to live in pods. We want, we need, we crave to be in the same place at the same time. And by the way, a word you never hear anymore in marketing, lifetime value. All we're doing is trying to accelerate the speed at which we make transactions and the accuracy, and it's missing the point. All of this that we're talking about is built on relationships. So any topical cream you have will say it's a 2% solution. You know what that means? That means the thing that fixes you is only 2%, and the delivery system is 98%. Take out that 2%, and it's worthless. Worthless. Are you going to be the delivery system, or are you going to be the destination? Thank you.